Good afternoon, my friends. This is the Grimflayer, and I hope you're all doing really well today. It is March, it is a new month, and therefore we are updating our build. We're gonna always be questing for the optimal build of everybody's favorite modern deck, Golgari Midrange, and no matter how good or how bad our results are, we're going to try to stay objective, and we're going to go back to the drawing board at the beginning of every month to reevaluate what's been going on with our deck in the context of its performance in and of itself, and in the context of changes to the broader meta. So it's going to be a fairly short and sweet one here today, but we're going to do it every single month because we've got to stay on top of the shifting sands that represent the modern meta. Before we get into that, let us say thank you and welcome to our newest patron, and I'm gonna butcher the name, I'm sure, but Luis Rates. There it is. There's my attempt. I hope I was close. Luis is a confidant, so welcome aboard, Luis. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Means a lot to me, my friend, and of course to all of my patrons, old and new. Thank you so much. And on that note, speaking of Patreon, every month at the beginning of the month, not only do we update the deck tech, but we do a scouting report. This is Patreon exclusive content where we do a deep dive into one of our nemesis, one of Modern's top decks. And this month it's going to be Mono Green Tron, which, the big mana decks are still a bit of a boogeyman for us, even though a little old card called Assassin's Trophy has improved the matchup immeasurably. Still, definitely a tough one. Unfortunately, I try to release these, right before I go into my deck tech. Didn't get it done today. Had to work, and I'm heading out of town for a wedding. So the scouting report, just so everybody knows, nobody gets alarmed, it'll be out a couple days late, probably Monday, Tuesday at the latest. But anyway, keep your eyes out for that. And if you'd like to support this channel, if you'd like to get access to the Patreon exclusive scouting reports and other tier rewards, you can check the link in the description below. And that would mean a lot to me. So, what are we doing differently this upcoming month, and why? Well, first of all, I played 7 competitive leagues last month. I uploaded 7 competitive leagues, and I played another 2 that I didn't upload. One because there was just a bunch of non-games, and one because I lost power during it, as I explained at the end of my most recent league, I believe. We lost power, so we lost a game, both in terms of getting an automatic loss where we would almost certainly have won, and in terms of not having anything to show for it for you, the viewers. So I've uploaded most but not all of the leagues I played last month, and I ended up at a 62% win rate. Including a 5-0. Didn't get published for the 5-0. Very unfortunate times, but I will take that all day, every day. You guys know how hard it is to maintain a positive win rate against the cream of the crop in the competitive league. So our list served us very well last month, but we can always do better. So what are the changes? Well, first of all, we're finally going for it. We took the Bob pill a few months back, and now we're arguably going to overdose on the Bob pill. That's right, the full 4 playset of Dark Confidant is coming to this channel. We are pursuing greatness at absolutely any cost. Might the cost be too high? Perhaps. Perhaps. We will have to see. But specifically during my 5-0, so many of the game wins came on the back of a turn 2 Dark Confidant. Conversely, in a lot of my recent losses, my losses have come on the back of being either mono-flooded or mono-screwed. Now, this is not new to anybody who plays Modern for any length of time. Mono-flood and mono-screw, it's part of variance, it's part of the game. But Dark Confidant, if he's winning me games actively on the play, or even on the draw, just being played on curve, and he could, in theory, help mitigate variance in terms of flooding or being stuck on 2 lands, which has happened to me a somewhat reasonable amount of the time over the course of my games last month. Well, those are two great things. We're basically doubling down on what's getting us the wins and hopefully mitigating some of the bad things that have been happening to us as well. Of course, this is not without cost. Number one, Dark Confidant is still a liability in a lot of contexts and a lot of matchups. If you're under pressure, he's a fairly bad top deck, and we try to be a deck that top decks well. So, obviously, this is not just an obvious, strictly better inclusion or anything, otherwise I would have been doing it this entire time. However, I think it's time to take the plunge. I think Confidant has showed me enough that I am going to try to play 4. And now I've almost done this already. I almost did this last month, but my thinking has been I'm very happy with the 60, and I didn't really feel comfortable dedicating yet another slot to a card advantage engine that dies to removal. So it's Bob and it's Tracker that fit that category mostly, and the whole time I was thinking I don't really want to touch the rest of my 75, so if I cut a Confidant, it's going to come at the expense of a Tracker, and I really didn't want to do that. However, since then, and so let's take a quick look at the creature count as things stand. We've got, of course, this is 61 cards. I need to make my cut, right? But we've got 4 Dark Confidant, 3 Skoos, 4 Tarmogoyf. That's 11. 3 Tireless Tracker, and a Kalitas is 15. 15 kind of represents the upper bounds of what's generally accepted wisdom in terms of how many creatures you want to play main deck in a green-black rock deck, right? So even if we don't cut another creature, like if we don't cut a Tireless Tracker for this Bob, we're still kind of within the realm of, we're pushing the bounds of accepted wisdom, but we are still within those bounds. So I reviewed my list, and just like at the beginning of last month, I really didn't want to take anything away, but at the same time, I really didn't want to lose this 3rd Tireless Tracker. I think playing a Kalitas main deck is great right now. Obviously, for the grave hate purposes and the life gain purposes, for the same reason we don't want to move away from the 3rd Skoos. And of course, Tarmogoyf is a pretty much untouchable slot at this point. So, what do we do? Do we have to cut a Tireless Tracker? Well, maybe. But I'm not gonna. I'm not going to. We're making a different cut, and unfortunately, it is going to be the Nile Spellbomb. Now, I have been pretty happy, I must say, with this main deck 1 of Nile Spellbomb. I have advocated for it for a while. Obviously, it's going to just net you some real advantage, borderline free wins sometimes if you happen to find it in your opener against an all-in graveyard deck game 1. This is going to go a long, long way. But the floor on this card is wonderful, because playing exactly 1 Nile Spellbomb, its floor is, it's a 2-mana cantrip that generally, on average, will tend to grow the Tarmogoyf, at least over the course of the game. So, very, very reasonable floor on this card. I think main decking exactly 1 is still perfectly viable. It arguably helps free up a sideboard slot that way too, depending on how you construct your 75. However, I simply don't have any other cut to make. If I'm not cutting this, I'm looking at either cutting that Tracker, like I just said, staying at 14 threats, or I'm looking at doing something really drastic, like going down to 3 Fatal Push, or trying to only play 23 lands and be very, very, very greedy. I don't want to do any of that stuff. This is the outlier. It's what needs to be cut if I want the 4th Dark Confidant. So if I don't end up liking the Bob, or if some other changes need to be made, I don't like some other card as much after some testing or some meta shifts, I will be happy to go back to this main deck Nile Spellbomb in a heartbeat. I still stand by it. However, for now, it's what makes way, so we'll see you later, Spellbomb. We'll see you in the sideboard, I guess. And we've got greatness. Greatness is our destiny. 4 Dark Confidant, we're going to see how it goes. Yeah, pretty exciting stuff. So, moving over here to the sideboard, well, you see that I have my 15 that I was running last month, +1, and the +1 is Damnation. So, what has to come out for the Damnation? Well, I have said in deck techs in previous months that I have been waffling, I have been indecisive, I have been vacillating between Languish and between Damnation in terms of which is better positioned overall. And obviously there are pros and cons to both. We've gone into it before. We don't need to go into it too deeply here. But what I've kind of said in the past on this channel is, like, if I ever make the plunge and go to Dark Confidant number 4, that, I believe, is the tipping point. That is kind of where I say, alright, Damnation becomes better than Languish, because number 1, Dark Confidant just represents yet another thing that dies to Languish. One of the major incentives to playing Languish, of course, is that predominantly your Tarmogoyfs can often survive it, but even in some board states, you know, if you've invested mana into them, Skuz, Tracker, Kalitas, all of these things can, in theory, outsize a Languish, right? But the more we play the Bobs, the more we are... the more permanents we're playing that just die to the Languish as though it were a Damnation. So that incentive is slightly reduced. And number 2, I guess the more pressure we're in theory under against the decks where these 4-mana Wraths are good, therefore maybe those incentives combined make us want the less conditional one, the one that just says you're all dead, no regen for you, see you later. Again, just like the Nile Spellbomb, I could very easily go back to the Languish. And, you know, there's a big part of me that wants to just play both. I think if you have space in your 15 for 2 4-mana sweeper effects, I do think you want a split, a 1-1 split. That would be my fairly strong opinion on that. I'm indecisive in terms of which one I like better, but I'm pretty confident that you can split them profitably, rather than playing 2 of one or 2 of the other, if you've got space for 2. But I'll tell you what, guys, I don't have space for 2. I mean, obviously it'd be great in a lot of ways, but I do not think that playing the second 4-mana sweeper, they're just like, sometimes they're a little too slow anyway. Sometimes they're a little bit of overkill. I really prefer to leverage the X for ones like Maelstrom Pulse and Engineered Explosives and Liliana the Last Hope that kind of cap out at that 3-mana mark, or in the case of EE, you can break up the cost over a couple turns, even if you spend 4 mana on it total, right? That said, I think there's still a time and a place. You kind of want the emergency button of just like, alright, kill the whole board, press reset, start over, right? That's why I've been on 1. I continue to think that's correct, at least so far as my own playstyle and proclivities and deck building are concerned. Therefore, even though a big part of me wants to keep both, we're going to say goodbye to Languish, we're going to try out the Damnation for a while, and we will see how it all goes. So, like I said, pretty much, you know, pretty quick stuff here today, guys. No other changes to R75. It's been serving us well. This full playset of Liliana of the Veil has been absolutely incredible, if you ask me. We got, like, slightly better win rates overall when we were on the 3-2 split main deck, but that is results-oriented thinking. I think trying to be objective, trying to look at the meta, trying to look back at the matches, Liliana of the Veil has been absolutely amazing overall. Absolutely incredible. And, of course, I still love Lily the Last Hope. That's why, even though some people are moving away from her, I've seen... Right now, for now, I am still playing 2 in my 75. She's still very key to our wins against a lot of attrition-based matchups, against the decks that play a lot of X1s, and she's another good piece against Control, which we still really hate losing to. By the way, that's a big reason I'm trying the 4th Dark Confidant. So good against blue-white Control. We want the Bobs to bury the Colonnade decks, and hopefully he will. So anyway, no other major changes, and that's about all I've got for you today, my friends. I expect to have a reasonable amount of time to start cranking out some leagues for you beginning next week. So to my patrons, again, expect the report on Tron to be published either Monday or Tuesday of this upcoming week, and then shortly thereafter, hopefully I'll have another competitive league up for you with this brand spanking new 75, only 2 changes to it, really, but, you know, it's still new. It's still new and shiny, right? So, as always, my friends, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think about the changes. Let me know what you think about the meta. Welcome once again to our new confidant, Luis. And, oh, yeah, Let me know also what you think about the announcement Modern Horizons, and we've got Cabal Therapist coming into Modern. I won't get into it here because I don't know that there's that much to talk about. I think he's a little bit too narrow. His use cases are a little bit too narrow for us. Don't expect him to really find a home in Golgari, but kind of cool anyway. Kind of cool piece of tech. Might see it enter Modern in some other decks, and it's just a sign of things to come. They're willing to, kind of remake legacy staples such as Cabal Therapy to perhaps not be outrageous in Modern, but to bring a similar effect to the card pool. So anyway, guys, let me know what you think about that, as well as everything I just mentioned, and I thank you again for watching. Stay tuned to the channel. Like I said, we've got some leagues coming up for you for sure next week. And I look forward to hearing your feedback in the comments below. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and if you're so inclined, to support me on Patreon. Thanks again, guys. I will talk to you soon. I hope you have a great weekend.